there is pretty unique position you have as an athlete. Sometimes I feel a bit like a fly on the wall. You get to talk to leaders within the brand, and you can be really critical. You're not sort of on there, you're not employed per se, you're contracted. So it's an interesting position you have, and I really appreciate that there is a way of of raising some critical questions to all my sponsors. And I feel like that was really fruitful for me, and hopefully for the sponsors as well, to like participate in hopefully doing things differently.
Hello and welcome. This is Claudia Klingelhofer for ISPO, and we are talking about sustainable challenges. Today I talk with Elias Elhardt. He's a pro snowboarder. A warm welcome, Elias.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, Elias, you kind of developed from just being a snowboarder to someone who really cares about the environment. Could you tell us a bit more about that journey?
Yeah, I guess I've been snowboarding for 25 years now, and have been living the life as a professional athlete for 15 years at least. So there's just been quite a lot of room to explore different fields, coming from a purely performance-focused background. I wanted to incorporate more and more the values I also have, and those are of course also placed in sustainability, and I could tell the contradictions that my lifestyle that I was living but also promoting would bring, and I was seeking opportunities to contribute in a positive manner also, not just in a, say, conflicting manner.
Yeah, so you made huge film projects, for instance in Alaska, and I think, at which point did you decide, no, I won't go there this winter, or I have to change something? Was this step by step, or was there kind of a disruptive moment?
Yeah, I guess it grew over time. You know, in a way, the life I was living is the life of a 14-year-old. The dream of a 14-year-old in some ways. I wanted to become a professional snowboarder, and this was all I wanted to do. And I could live that life, and that was amazing. But with time, you know, in my early 20s, I was just interested in other topics as well, in politics and just topics that concern the society. But there really wasn't much space for me to express that. And so there was a certain conflict that I carried within, until one point I felt like I don't feel I want to continue this lifestyle if I cannot find a more authentic way of doing it. And that's, I guess, when was that? Like 2018 maybe. I stopped participating in the more or less classic snowboard films where you travel around the world and gather the best shots, the best performance. And I initiated a film project called Contra, where I wanted to sort of address just that, my own controversy in the sport that I have, and the conflicts I have loving the sport, but also having a really resources intensive approach, flying around the world. And then just, from there on out, seeking different ways of doing it in my communication, but also in my personal life.
Mm-hmm. I could imagine that there was also contradictions in how this project was received. What was it like?
Yeah, it's interesting because there really wasn't so much controversy around it. It's weird because I guess by opening up and making yourself vulnerable, people appreciated that. And everyone could also see something different in that. Some people emphasized more on this, say, forever excited notion that is in there, that is questioning sort of growing older in a sport that's entitled to eternal youth. That's an element that sort of is this is a question we tackle. And so some people would see that more as a core they were interested in, and other people would be more interested in the conflicting topics of sustainability that are also addressed. And I guess the roof of it all is growing older in this sport of snowboarding, titled to eternal youth, to playfulness, but taking responsibility and finding purpose in that. And that is a conflict that I feel like a lot of people share, maybe especially in my generation, that we all grew up with this passion, snowboarding, and then we have similar sort of biographies, similar thoughts. So I feel like it really resonated with a lot of people. So most feedback I got was that people, could resonate with the questions we opened up about.
Did you inspire then? I mean, resonating is like, wow, well done, Elias, but I have to earn my living with just competition and huge film projects.
Yeah, it's funny. There's one person, for instance, that wrote me that had such an impact on his life that he stopped being a pilot. He was a pilot for Lufthansa, and then he stopped being a pilot for some years. Yeah, I got a lot of sort of really cool messages that people, or one girl had a tattoo, forever excited, from the film. So yeah, whatever people took away from this film, they sometimes even implemented it in their lives, and it went beyond sort of an interest of inspiration, but also as a call to action to some maybe. But of course that can only be the last drop maybe of an involvement that people would take, but I'm happy that it could emphasize sort of some of the questions that people would have.
Mm-hmm. Let's take a bit more to the scene of sporting goods brands. How did your sponsors react? Did they support it?
Yes, they did support it, but also I have to say I was really certain about this film. I really wanted to do this because I told myself I wanted to find more authenticity with what I do. I want to be more, proud of what I do. It's it wouldn't be enough for me anymore. It wouldn't feel enough to just go for yet another video part, try and be this or that in performance snowboarding. And I think my partners, they could really tell that this is what I wanted to do, and they stuck with me. For instance, Nitro, I'm with them for 15 years, and they followed me through such different phases and supported me, and that I really, really, really appreciate. That's been amazing. So that was the one sort of way of working with partners, the ones that have been so close with me, like Nitro, Deluxe, Smith for so many years, and that just kind of followed what I wanted to do and enhanced that, because they had they also wanted to participate in that, also wanted to be more credible in sustainability and do something. So it wasn't just forced on them. I think that was a good conversation that was also internally and keeps going internally. And then on the other side, there was a shift also where I felt like with Picture, I wanted a more suiting partner that wanted to tell stories in this environment, meaningful stories, whether it's a social cause or an environmental cause, and use snowboarding as a vehicle, as a platform. And so this was around, I guess, 2 years after, or even 3 years after Contradiction, when I kept doing such films. I was happy to partner up with Picture because I felt like we had a shared vision.
Tell us a bit more about that. I mean, it's, as we are talking to people from the industry, what could this way be of being a conscious athlete and partnering with a brand that takes a stand? What are you doing basically to for the impact?
I guess there's multiple layers. There's one that's sort of internally in the brand. You discuss a lot, you raise concerns. There is pretty unique position you have as an athlete. Sometimes I feel a bit like a fly on the wall. You get to talk to leaders within the brand, and you can be really critical. You're not sort of on there, you're not employed per se, you're contracted. So it's an interesting position you have, and I really appreciate that there is a way of of raising some critical questions to all my sponsors. And I feel like that was that was really fruitful for me and hopefully for the sponsors as well, to like participate in hopefully doing things differently. And then of course there's the outside communication of what you do. At the end of the day, what a brand wants is to be associated with the passion for the sport in the most beautiful way. And in addition to that, it wants to also be associated to certain values. And this set of values goes now beyond, say, an appreciation for the sport and the mountains, but appreciation for the environment and topics that would concern the society. And so I think it helps the brands as well. And we together can tell stories then that people care about, because also people are a bit tired sometimes of just the pure action flicks. So all together, I mean, it's an ecosystem where only I play like one role of the whole ecosystem, but I think it's ready for those stories. And I mean, the stories are everywhere, also in our sport. It's just how you frame them and what you emphasize on. And then, like I said, as example with contradiction, you can sort of raise those questions and find an audience that is interested in it.
So could you tell us a bit more about your latest project, or a project that after contradiction just resonates very well with the people out there, or maybe even a future project that is in your plans?
So the latest project I've done, it's called Invisible Ground. And that was a film, our tagline is a film about vulnerability, a snowboard film about vulnerability, where we wanted to question sort of this hero narrative of defeating the risks, defeating even death in some ways. And so we did this film with Xavier Delarue, one of the most acclaimed freeriders in the world for decades almost. So he's been pushing those limits, and he really stands for a very extreme approach to our sport, but also to a very masculine way of conquering the mountain in some ways. And we wanted to break that image a bit, or make it a little bit, challenge that image and give it more nuances. And so now he's a father of two little daughters, and so there's a lot has changed in his life. And it was nice to have that conversation, especially after we both had a really dramatic experience where we lost someone in the mountain. And that was a starting point for us to really question sort of what we put out there and what we live ourselves as far as our risk approach goes. And yeah.
Mm-hmm. How does this relate to sustainability? Because I could imagine there is a connection.
Of course, I mean, if you want, you can pull strings to sustainability from everywhere. I don't want to stretch that too far. I guess having a conscious approach, a more subtle approach to things is a good starting point also for questions around sustainability. If you need this moment of like questioning yourself and what you do. Otherwise, you just hammer through, you just keep powering through whatever the concept may have been in the past. And we have come from different times, from whatever. The helicopter is always is a symbol for that, but it's also the flying around, consuming the world in the most crazy way. Consuming experiences, I guess that's what it is. Consuming experiences is what our industry and the communication we've had around snowboarding, we've seen around snowboarding for decades, has been all about. And to question that narrative is a big thing. And I think it takes those role models that have been spokespersons for this consumeristic lifestyle to question that. And to explore if we find other different narratives that can be just as good or better and more suitable, more up to date with our times.
I think you really quite well illustrated already what a future vision of the industry could be like. So if you could make a wish for the industry, for this kind of consumerism that we're focusing, and this is the only narrative at the moment that is reigning. What would be your future wish, how this could look like?
I mean, I think already going beyond communication into action would be something that's nice, because also in this whole sustainability, there's a lot of marketing, of course. And yes, telling stories is important to sort of shift the paradigm, but also it can easily become greenwashing. So to shift the needle or thread the needle from like less greenwashing and more action, tangible action, I guess that's a real challenge, because it's shifting the business model and building sustainable business models in sort of economically, but also ecologically and socially sustainable business models. That's really tough, but that's the challenge I would love to see brands take on and be proud of the business model they can build and the industry they can build. And marketing can be a means to like communicate just that, but it shouldn't be the only sort of like thing they do.
That's beautiful. And you yourself, you took action basically. So could you tell us what you're actually doing when it comes to real action and engagement for social, environmental causes?
So there's this one project that I've started. It's called Climate Dialogue on the Mountain. I've done it together with POW Germany. And we basically have a platform for politicians. The first edition, we had it for politicians from Bavaria to come to the highest mountain of Germany and talk about climate politics with athletes and media and experts in that field. And it has proven to be a pretty cool concept where a lot of media would show up, a lot of like high-ranking politicians. And it was cool. The idea is to like take them out of the daily trenches of politics to quite literally the highest mountains, to be a bit more general about the future and their commitments to climate action. And it's an interesting media event, of course, as well, because then there's images, there is it has proven to be an interesting concept where media was interested to highlight that topic again. So this was one thing I'm really happy to do with POW, and we want to keep doing. Unfortunately, now we were planning to do a pretty big edition for the next German elections next summer. Now they're already pretty soon, but I guess we'll still do it in the summer. I mean, climate policy is always there, and it's a real fight to bring it to the top of the list again with migration and wars. And it's been a big topic for many years, but it has definitely been hard with all the other pressing issues to place that topic in people's minds. And I think that's why such events can be really valuable, to find moments of dialogue, in an environment that's so toxic, also to talk about it. Like, that's the idea, to like have a dialogue from politicians and people from all different backgrounds. So that's one program we've kind of started and we do annually. As far as the social approach goes, is like I also study psychotherapy, and I was always really interested in connecting my passion for sports and movement, which has really been the backbone of my life, with a social cause. And so I'm also an ambassador for Laureus. And Laureus is a foundation that's supporting programs around the world for disadvantaged youth and young adults connected with sports. And so that's really cool for me to like, for one, study it, but then also put it into action with them. One of the programs I'm going to work with is in South Africa this winter. It's called Waves for Change, and they take kids from the townships, so from the poor parts of the towns there, to surfing. So that connects sort of the passions I have, and that's where I would also see my future working-wise after the career.
Yeah. yeah, after the career, so there will more steps to come in your active career, if you could say it like this. But if you would take one step back and you would, it's an obvious question in an interview, you would meet your 14-year-old you again. So what would you tell Elias, being 14, snowboarding at Fellhorn and just having the hell of a fun out there?
What I like as far as wise words go, or I don't know.
As wise as you can be.
I guess I was stressing myself too much at times, you know. I guess that would be a very universal thing that people would tell their younger selves, is to take a step at a time. And, you know, it's the classic, don't pull the grass. It won't grow any faster through that. So that's one thing that I for sure would have needed to take on board sometimes through this career. But all in all, I don't know, it's so weird because yes, now I'm at an age where I do look back and I question this or that decision, but I've come to like think that there's really no other way to think of life than the one it was, you know. Then it's so I guess I've went through all the pit holes and the like things that I've done wrong to become who I am and to arrive where I'm at, and that's okay.
Okay, then let's look as a closing into the future. So what does Elias do in the next 10 years with regards, of course, to kind of sustainable action?
I want to finish my education as a psychotherapist. That goes a long time. That's like 5 years more to go, already practicing as a psychotherapist. So that's one thing I want to do. And I would love to build a social program connected with sports and psychotherapy, like the one I was mentioning in South Africa, where we work with young people, disadvantaged young people, through the power of sport on topics that are greater than, say, the sheer performance or fun of it. But yeah, topics that concern their most vulnerable sides. So that's a dream I would like to pursue. And as far as a snowboarder, yeah, I guess I always like the idea of building bridges into these directions. So like I've seen so different faces in my career, and I've always sort of widened this role, what a snowboard professional can be. And I would like to continue doing that and building bridges into other areas. I've done it into filmmaking, but I also want to do it more into this social environment or in this ecological sort of activism approach. So as long as I have partners like Picture that want to go that path with me, I think that's great to connect with the role I've built for so many years and sort of progress it further.
Thanks a lot.
Yes.
Thanks, Elias, for this insightful interview and very inspiring. So thanks for listening. And I hope you liked it. Just let us know in the comments, push the subscribe button, or head to ISPO Accelerating Sports at Instagram or to ispo.com. See you next time.